Okay, I think we can get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We are delighted to have you join us for the last webinar of the year, Right Research at the Right Time, Building Your 2026 UX Research Roadmap. And really, what a year it's been with so much innovation and changes happening all around us. We put our heads together to really offer you a lot of value today, something tangible that you can take away with you and go back to throughout 2026 to ensure that your UX research strategy really meets objectives and delivers the results that you're looking for. Before we dive in, I want to introduce you to the team joining me today. With us is Tiago Moresco. He's one of our principal UX researchers. And Tiago has nearly a decade of experience across agencies and enterprise teams. And he has this great ability to really blend qualitative insights with sharp data-driven thinking. Also with us today is Pippa Christopher, a strategic account manager here at Userlytics. Pippa works directly with clients across industries, focusing on understanding what clients really need and helping them move through projects. People love working with her because she really brings a calm, organized approach and is known for building strong, lasting relationships. I'm Liliana Camacho, and I lead content initiatives here at Userlytics, and I'll be guiding us through today's session. We're really excited to have you. Stay tuned throughout the session. We do have a takeaway gift for you. We've prepared something that we think will come in very handy for you as you're putting all the learning that you're going to get today. So before we get started, we will run a couple of quick polls throughout the session. They really help us tailor our conversation, so please jump in and answer as they appear. Let's get started. So before we dive into today's topic, we'd like to get to know where you're at with your research approach today. This really helps us know where in the journey you are at. And so take a moment to answer today's poll. How would you describe your team's research approach today? Is it mostly tactical and reactive? Is it strategic, but still ad hoc? Fully integrated into product decisions? Yay. We're building our process for 2026 or other. Take a quick moment to let us know where you are. Mostly tactical and reactive. Strategic, but still ad hoc. Okay. And many of you are still building your roadmap. Fantastic. Okay, so looks like a lot of you are strategic, but still ad hoc. So you leave some room for strategy as things move and shift, but many of you are also tactical and reactive. So we hope that today's session is going to help you move the needle forward and improve your internal processes so that you can start delivering more value. Thank you for that. Perfect. So let's get started. Now we're going to shift into the first part of our session today, State of Play 2025-2026, where we'll set up the stage for why timing and strategy really matter so much going into next year. To walk us through it, I'm going to hand it over to Pippa.
Thanks so much, Liliana. On this slide that you're looking at now is just a couple key trends that have been shaping 2025 and trends we foresee moving forward into 2026 and influencing how we plan our roadmaps and do our research next year. So in the past year, we've seen UX shift from a validation function to a driver of business strategy, where research teams are engaging early in product planning. AI is reshaping workflows, and inclusivity and accessibility still remain essential in how we design our products today. So just taking you through some of these key trends. The first one is one I'm sure we are all very familiar on. It has been a hot topic this year, and it will continue to be a one next year, and that's AI. AI-driven analysis, where AI is taking on more of the analysis work, giving researchers more time for deeper thinking. Our second one is mixed methods by default, where mixed methods research is becoming the norm, blending numbers with real human context. And then third, we've got continuous discovery, where ongoing discovery is replacing those once-off studies that we used to run. Accessibility as maturity. Here is where accessibility and inclusion are becoming essential markers to UX maturity. And then lastly, we've got ROI-centered research. Research that shows a clear return on investment is getting more attention from executives because it connects user insight directly with business results. And it's these shifts that are moving teams towards a more intentional and strategic way of planning their research. So moving on, let's start by acknowledging how much the UX research landscape has changed. Over the past year, the pace of research has accelerated in a way we've never seen before. My colleague Valentina, who's our head of research, actually put it so beautifully during her talk at the Push UX in Munich this year, where she said, what used to require full labs and long planning cycles now fits into browser tabs. And she's so right. The shift is happening everywhere, and it's happening fast. AI and automation are major forces behind this acceleration. In fact, a recent study shows that 68% of companies are now using AI to personalize their user experiences. This is a clear sign of just how rapidly the field is evolving. Most of us can acknowledge that research has become faster to launch, quicker to analyze, and easier to share across teams. But the real value isn't just in speed. It's in how organizations use that research to drive smarter decisions. And a great example is actually Dropbox. They've invested heavily in user experience, allocating 37% of their budget to UX and only 18% to sales this year. They understand that truly knowing the user experience directly impacts business results. And here's a small tip to add to that. The advantage isn't just in running more studies. It's knowing which studies to run and when to run them. So as we look towards 2026, the focus is shifting again. It's not just about speed anymore. It's about timing, alignment, and intent. The real opportunity is in connecting these faster tools and methods to meaningful business decisions. And that's what will determine whether research remains tactical or becomes strategic. So, if 2025 was the year we mastered speed, 2026 is the year we need to master alignment to maximize our impact. We're entering the new year with more data, tools, and automations than ever before. But teams are realizing that speed without alignment creates noise. And most of us, I'm sure, have encountered this at least once in our lifetime. When everyone is testing and sharing insights at different rhythms, it becomes harder to influence decisions. And that's where timing matters. When research arrives too late, it becomes validation instead of strategy. And the goal is to be proactive, not reactive in our research. The third piece is strategy. Great UX research doesn't just produce data. It ties that data to business priorities. And when speed, timing, and strategy work together, research has a real impact. And that impact is what we're all aiming for. We know that strong UX can even triple our conversion rates. It's a clear example of how the right insights at the right moment drive growth. So as we head into 2026, the goal isn't to go faster. It's to go smarter, making sure that every study and every insight lands when it can actually shape a decision. Which brings us to our key question for today. What does it really mean to do the right research at the right time? And Tiago is going to walk us through how teams can make this shift in a bit. I'll hand over to you, Liliana.
Thank you, Pippa. Before we head into the next session, we'd love to know, what's your biggest challenge in planning for research this coming year? Is it prioritizing which studies to run, aligning research with business goals, resources and budget, proving the value of research to stakeholders? If other, all good. Take a moment to answer. Okay, resources and budget, aligning research with business results, definitely. Prioritizing which studies to run. Okay, some of you think that's a challenge. Proving the value of research to stakeholders, that's a huge one. something we touch on throughout the year for sure. And some of you have some other challenges that are not presently here, but we hope that we answer throughout the session. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer that. Perfect. Let's move on to right research at the right time. I go over to you.
Thank you so much, Liliana. Yes, let's go to the next slide, actually. I just wanted to quickly introduce us to one of the things that, or some of the things that we'll be discussing here. And first, I wanted to apologize because you realized very quickly that I talk a lot with my hands, so apologies for that. I hope that it's not too disturbing. But yeah, let's just dive into what does right research at the right time really mean. So, well, it means a couple of things here. So it means that we have less focus on how to do research and less focus on how is one of the main reasons is what Pippa just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Everything happening in AI and how AI is democratizing research or helping us democratize research to enable non-researchers to run their own studies as well. So the question remains more on when research can drive value, more than how to do research. So the technicalities and the specificity, the methodologies and the specificities of the methodologies. This is the kind of this kind of things we've seen more and more being more and more democratized throughout this year. So now, again, that's why we're here basically, which is to discuss and yeah, to learn as a big group on when research can really drive more value and what are the tools that we can have in place and what are the strategic approach that we can have towards driving more value at the right time. I think all of us, either we are researchers, designers, product managers, or any other, uh, I would say, product-related roles. I think we're all seeing a growing pressure to demonstrate ROI, like how much value are we driving to the business and are we paying off as a team or not, that kind of thing. So really, again, doing the right research at the right time speaks directly to how relevant we are as to our organizations and to the business we are serving. And again, just the last point here is I think we all agree as well that teams are shipping faster than ever. So we're seeing product cycles being shortened. Also, I think one of the key things here that I wanted to say for this last point here before we move to the next slide is if research arrives too late, then it becomes validation instead of strategy. And I think that's super important. That will be key for everything that we'll just start discussing from now on, which is really aligning on the right time part of the question, right? So, like if we are too late or if we are too soon, if there's no synchrony, there's no rhythm between research and other teams, then we're just doing validation. We're just a check mark in someone's report rather than being part of the strategy. So I would say that timing has never mattered more than now. And I think that's a good thing to have in mind for the coming year. So yeah, let's move ahead, please. I know we have a lot of ground to cover, so I'll try to be as quick as possible without being too shallow, hopefully. So yeah, and why this matters in 2026? Well, I think we all know and we all seen and we all been part somehow of budget constraints and reduction in headcounts and all of that throughout this year, not only throughout 2025, perhaps since 2023, but more intensively in the last year and this year. So layoffs are really, whether we like it or not, layoffs are actually reshaping how research gets done. So we are seeing all sorts of new arrangements, professional arrangements, when it comes to not only UX research, but UX research included in terms of how, uh, you know, um, how different roles have been affected by the layoffs and how teams that once had, perhaps dedicated researchers to rely on, they now need to, play a different game and resource things in a different way to keep the ball rolling. So, and one of the key messages I would say that it's an outcome or a learning from this situation is that not every organization either needs or can sustain a full-time research function. So I think that became super evident, especially this year. But that doesn't actually mean that research needs to be stopped or needs to be ditched at all. That's quite the opposite. And that's why we've seen here at Userlytics, we have observed the rise of fractional research, which is, like perhaps organizations are incorporating researchers just a couple of times of the year, like when they have like important product launches or important design decisions to be made. And for the rest of the year, perhaps, like they're working on different ways with different professionals, because as we learned in the previous slide, there's also a lot of enablement when it comes to running UX research studies. So again, there is this new reality of UX research not necessarily being a full-time function within organizations, but rather, being incorporated when they can drive more value. Let's continue, please. So yeah, one of the key things we wanted to present today and discuss with you is how to shape your 2026 UX roadmap, and of course where UX research would fit into your roadmap and how, with type of weight and with type of resourcing. So this is really the key topic of our discussion today. We have come up with 5 different steps, which I have laid out in the next slide. So yeah, so this is a framework. We're going to deep dive into each one of these 5 steps. So the first one, we're going to talk about defining strategic pillars. Then we're going to move into aligning timing and methodology. Pippa already brought up the fact, the mixed method part of the equation. That is something that we've seen more and more. So we're going to talk about the methods and timing. On step number 3, we're going to talk about resourcing, really, and how we do allocate resources intentionally. That is part of the conversation that I already initiated here when talking about, like fractional research and or seasonal UX research, all of that. And on step number 4, we're going to talk about ownership and cross-functional ownership, and then we're going to just wrap that up by talking about metrics and measurement. So let's deep dive into each one of these topics, and starting with the most important one, in my humble opinion, which is defining strategic pillars. I think this is precisely where we connect UX research directly to business goals. And this is super, super important. And I'm going to just disclose why, in my opinion, in a couple of minutes. But anyway, this is about defining 3 to 5 big themes that align with the business goals. And each and every study that we're going to run in 2026 should address at least one of these pillars. I think this is a nice exercise in terms of having north stars for us as organizations, as research teams, in terms of, hey, we have this study proposal, or we have this learning need. So let's check actually if this study, this plan, this need actually is tied to at least one of the pillars that we defined strategically, just so we can make sure that we are driving value from the get-go. And I'm also really sure that most of us, we have been, as I mentioned before, under some kind of pressure to deliver value and to prove our value as teams, and and also just making sure that we can influence decisions at the right time. But again, because if we start doing research or planning our research roadmap from the get-go already aligned with business goals, then we no longer need to prove the value of research, right? Because the value will be already built in the plan itself. So this is that's why I mentioned this is the most important step for me and this proposed framework. Of course, this is not set in stone. This is not something that is not open to debate. It's quite the opposite. This is something that we put together based on our experience and based on the things that we've seen this year. But this one, in this context, I would say is one of the most important things to do well. And that actually helps us to say no with a good basis. So I'm not saying no to your study, for example, if we're working cross teams. Hey, I'm not saying no to your study just because, I don't want to do that study. It's actually because it's not tied to any of the pillars that we defined. therefore, studies that are tied to 1, 2, 3 pillars, they will be a priority over the one that you are proposing. So I think also this gives us a good baseline in terms of being more strategic and also managing resourcing, which is step number 3, by the way. But yeah, let's move to number 2 for now. And people,
Tiago, I
sorry, you
just
want to?
wanted to, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
sorry.
wanted to jump in and add to that. I couldn't agree more with you. I think this first pillar is a super important one. When we can tie our research to business priorities and show real impact, we get attention from leadership and stakeholders, that attention that we need. To get support, whether that's through budget or resources or prioritization, or even just overall backing we need to move things forward. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on this one.
Yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Pippa. And yeah, so for number 2 here, so aligning timing methods, really the key idea here is that the studies that we run, they build on each other. So instead of running, let's say, 3, 4, 5 ad hoc disconnected studies over the year, the suggestion here is that we plan them carefully, just so one study will be building up on the learnings from the previous one. And that way, the gaps that, so let's say in Q1 and Q2 we've seen a few gaps, like we run some studies that were tied to the business goals, that were tied to the 3 to 5 pillars that we defined from the very beginning, but still there are some gaps. Well, we can actually plan on how to address those gaps in Q2 and Q3, already taking on the learnings that we had from the previous study. So that is essentially the idea here, is that we choose the right methods, we run research at the right moment, just so we can maximize our influence. And I think, again, I think everything that we want as researchers is to make sure that we are driving our organizations forward. We are helping to inform teams on what are the best decisions and actually drive the business forward. So building adopting this incremental approach to how we plan our studies is key to reach these goals. So yeah, we can move forward, please. And this one is again important. I already talked a little bit about that, but before talking about, like or deep diving into the different types of resourcing that we have, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the AI thing. I'm pretty sure we are all using or planning to use AI to help us with some mundane tasks, for example, and to expedite our work and to make us more efficient as teams. So I think it's in that process, and that process is completely fine. We're actually doing that here at Userlytics as well. But I think it's just important to keep in mind the things that AI can do really well and can support us, and the things that we human researchers we need to keep doing, just so we keep bringing value to the table. So of course we can use AI to run all sort of repetitive tasks, such as transcriptions, thematic analysis, or pre-analysis, and all of that. But still, we need to make sure that we human beings, we are interpreting research data, we are shaping the narrative, because storytelling is more important than ever, I would say. So it's not only about sharing research outcomes and research insights, it's also about how to tell the stories according to the stakeholders we are presenting to. Different stakeholders may respond differently to different types of stories. Like some leaders in your organization, they may respond better to user quotes or to video clips. Some other may respond better to data points and that kind of thing. So we really need to understand how to tell the stories, just so they are compelling and we can drive more influence. So yeah, the same goes for prioritizing on what to take action on first, and the recommendations we're presenting to our stakeholders, and how we are helping to facilitate decisions with the information we are providing. So again, I think it's just important to keep that separation in mind, in terms of AI helping us to scale our insights, and we helping create the understanding and share the understanding in the right way. And there's another part, the second part of allocating resources intentionally, which is a little bit of what I talked at the very beginning, which is we're seeing more and more flexible resourcing models, such as research as a service. So sort of internal research agencies serving multiple teams or multiple organizations, fractional research as well, or even seasonal research depending on the company's product or service cycles. So still um, lots of new ways to work and ways to keep running research. Again, that's not because we don't have full-time dedicated teams anymore in some cases that we should stop doing research. We just need to find new ways to keep up with the good work. So just moving into number 4. If you remember, step number 1, according to this framework that we're suggesting, was about defining strategic pillars. And if we define strategic pillars together, that actually starts creating what we have here in number 4, cross-functional ownership. So if we all agree from the get-go on the things that we'll be working on the upcoming year, then it's easier to have everyone feeling as they own that plan, right? That roadmap. So if everybody owns the roadmap, then everybody is accountable for what we put in that roadmap or the decisions that we make towards the roadmap, the studies that we decide to run or to not run. They are all shared across teams, and they don't belong only to the research team, which is something I've seen before in previous working experiences. Like, oh, the research team is on the roadmap. Talk to them. No, not really. We made decisions together. We need to make decisions together. Otherwise, we will keep getting that very annoying question. Hey, what is the ROI of research? Well, if we if we agreed on what we'll be working on from the get-go, then the ROI is embedded, right? It's part of the whole calculation. It doesn't need like a separate calculation, as we keep hearing in some cases. So again, being accountable and sharing the ownership, sharing the highlights and the lowlights as well is something that we believe it's important moving into the next year. But let's just address the last one. I don't want to take a lot of your time with the framework. I know that Liliana has prepared some surprises in terms of things that will facilitate the process of implementing this framework. But anyway, the last one is measure and adapting. And this is really about, like if you work under Scrum methodology, you may be used to the post-mortem reviews after certain projects. And this is sort of the same thing we're suggesting here, that we are suggesting quarterly reviews and asking all the stakeholders, all the sharing, all the owners really of the research roadmap. What decisions did research influence? So where we drove most value. What user problems were solved? This is super important. We are still working. It doesn't matter if we are fractional researchers, doesn't matter if we're working seasonally with research, we're still researching human behavior. I think that's super important to keep in mind. It doesn't really matter the approach or the framework or the structure, the resources, we're still investigating issues, we're still researching humans and how humans interact with different things, with different services, different products, different interfaces. So that doesn't change. So what business outcomes moved? So again, this is a direct response to the ROI question we keep getting in some cases. So where did we help move the needle forward? Not only as a research team, but again, considering all stakeholders, remember about shared accountability in the previous one? Well, that is one question directly tied to that. What gaps still exist, just so we can align and perhaps address those gaps in the next quarter or the next 2 quarters? I don't really know. It really depends. And what needs to change for the next quarter? So the idea here is that the roadmap is a living system which needs adjustment, which needs optimization, which needs iterations and needs refinement. So those quarterly reviews is something that we need to keep in mind, really. And that's it for now, Liliana. I know that you and Pippa have more things to share with us. So yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Tiago. Now that we've actually talked about strategy, we'd like to show you what this actually looks like in practice. So we've actually put together 2 use cases from studies we've helped clients accomplish from inception to insights. And they really highlight what happens when teams shift from reactive testing to intentional, well-timed research based on strategic pillars and business needs. So these represent different industries with uniquely different challenges, but the same outcome, real actionable impact. So Pippa's going to take us through those. Over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Liliana. Yeah, so we've just got 2 use cases for today that I just want to quickly take you through, just showing how you can be more intentional with your research and how other brands have done it. So the first use case is an example that shows what happens when you study the whole consumer journey and not just the online bit. So here, a well-known brand in the food and hospitality industry came to us because they wanted to understand their full customer journey. Not just the digital ordering experience, but what actually happened in store during delivery, as well as after that. Their traditional research gave them snapshots of this, but never the full picture. So what I want to do here is just take you through the approach, the outcome, and the takeaway. So if we just move to the next slide, what we did was we designed what you'd call a sandwich study to map the real end-to-end experience, where we had 3 phases. We looked at the pre-order interviews, then we looked at real-time capture, and then the post-order reflections. So during the pre-order interviews, this is where we looked at what customers experienced or expected and experienced, and how they chose what to order and what mattered most to them. Then during the real-time capture, this is where we observed the live experiences during in-store pickup or during home delivery. And then the last phase was the post-order reflection, which allowed us to uncover what delighted them, what confused them, and if expectations were or weren't being met. And this helped us connect what users expected online with what they actually experienced physically. So the outcome here was that we found clear gaps where the digital experience promised certain things, but in store and during delivery, that didn't fully match the promise. And knowing this led to improvements like smoother ordering flows, better pickup at signage, clear handoff queues, and more transparent experience in the process overall between the brand and the consumer. So the takeaway from this use case is cross-channel experience needs cross-channel research. When you follow the full journey, you uncover insights that single touchpoint studies will miss. All right, and then let's move to the second use case, and let me just take you through our second use case. And this is another example, but this time in the retail industry, where understanding what people really valued made all the difference. So here, a well-known brand, but as I mentioned, this time in the apparel and retail industry, wanted to redesign their membership program, but they weren't sure what consumers actually valued or why they would sign up in the first place. They needed clarity before redesigning both the landing page and the program itself. So again, what I'm going to do is we'll go to the next slide and I'll take you through our approach, the outcome, and the takeaway. So what we did was we combined competitive benchmarking with unmoderated concept testing. And this helped us understand what people expected from the membership program, which benefits feel essential versus are just nice to have, and then that emotional and practical reason people decide to join in the first place. And we uncovered what truly drives signups. And it wasn't just for the sake of discounts and perks, but things like feeling valued, getting early access, and being part of something exclusive. So the takeaway here from this use case and from this project was emotional benefits matter. The feeling of belonging, recognition, and exclusivity shouldn't be overlooked. But we also found a clear need to communicate the financial benefits that act as hard drivers, like those discounts and early access and free delivery, which consumers love. Ultimately, what we found was that the strongest membership program delivered both the emotional connection and those tangible perks. And I'll hand over to Liliana.
Thank you so much, Pippa. That's excellent. Well, we did promise you a takeaway gift, and here it is. Now that you have all of this theory, it's time to really put it into practice. And we want to actually leave you with a practical tool that you can start using right away. And so we put together this exclusive 2026 UX Research Roadmap Planning template. And it uses the same framework we walked through today. And it's turned into a worksheet that you can use for planning sessions, quarterly reviews, or even team workshops. And so if you want to take a moment, you can actually scan to access, and you'll be able to make a copy when you land to the template. And so if you're not able to scan it right now, we will email it to you along with the recording. But this is going to be a template that you can use throughout next year. And we really hope that it's something that helps you, nail down your priorities and decision cycles, and also, treat it as a document that can evolve as your business does. So we hope that you take a ton of value from it. And thank you so much for joining us today. Before we leave, we wanted to let you know that for those of you that are new to Userlytics and are interested in working with us, we'd love to connect. We're actually currently running some of the biggest deals of the year, so it's maybe a great time for you to jump in and have your research ready for next year. So if you'd like to learn more, just email us at ux@userlytics.com, and we'll explore ways that we can collaborate. And just be mindful that these offers are on until December 31st, so do take advantage of those before the year end. Perfect. So I think we've come to our Q&A part of the session. We'd love to answer some of your questions. So if you haven't submitted your questions to the Q&A section, just go ahead and take a moment to do that. We are getting some questions in right now, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible for the next 5 to 8 minutes or so. So just take a moment, pop in your questions. Okay, it looks like we have one in here that says, how do you get product teams to include research earlier? Tiago, would you like to take that one?
Yes, I can take this one. So yeah, how do you get product teams to include research earlier? Well, I think it's I truly believe in the power of the shared ownership, which was part of our framework, number 4, if I'm not mistaken. So really, it's a team effort or a cross-team effort to make sure that we are prioritizing research earlier. And again, if we so that is one part of the answer, like one team reminding each other that we actually need to run research from the get-go, not only as validation, because as I mentioned at the very beginning, if research comes too late, then it's simply validation. It's just checking the research box rather than being able to build something more strategic. That is one part of the answer, cross ownership. And again, one team helping each other to understand and to remind really ourselves, because of course we're all doing a lot of work, we're all meeting like tight deadlines. So I think it's important for us to take care of each other in terms of being guardians of the importance of research, and reminding ourselves and the teams that we work with that we actually need to plan research. So that is one thing. The other part of the answer, in my opinion, is the number one of our framework. So how do we get product teams to include research earlier? Well, making sure that we are serving the business in the best way possible. Because if the business has clear learning needs, it doesn't really matter. I'm not talking about methodologies at this point. I'm just talking about learning needs. Oh, we need to, as a business, we need to learn about X, Y, and Z, because that is important just so we move the needle forward, or just so we influence our OKRs or KPIs or whatever. So making sure that that research needs are actually coming from leadership teams and from like from strategic roles within organizations, because that will put a good pressure, I would say, on the other teams to make sure that we are actually planning research and including that earlier rather than later in our processes. So I think there's those two answers to this question.
Thank you, Tiago. Awesome. We have another question here that asks, how often should we update our roadmap? Pippa, would you
Yeah.
like to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. It's a really good question, actually. And honestly, a good rule of thumb is to probably update your strategic roadmap quarterly. You want enough flexibility to review and adjust as you go, but not so much that you are constantly updating and it's creating noise and feels a bit chaotic. And as Tiago mentioned earlier in the webinar, he said you need to think of your roadmap as a living system. So think of it as a living system or living ecosystem. It should evolve when things change, but it doesn't need to be consistent tweaking. So quarterly is probably a solid baseline to stick to, and then update as needed when things meaningful pop up. I don't know, Tiago, if you would have anything to add to that.
No, I think that's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with
Okay.
you.
Thank you both. Okay, so Flavio is asking, can you think of any signs which might indicate that the wrong research is being done at the wrong time? What are those red flags, Tiago?
Uh, that's a very good question. Let me think about it. I think, so any signs that might indicate that the wrong research is being done at the wrong time. So quite the opposite that we are promoting here. Let's perhaps just reverse engineer a few things here. So I think one of the things that is a good sign or a bad sign in this case is how wisely we choose our methodologies. Of course, like if we choose the wrong methodology, is like if we remind ourselves of the step number 2 and this in our suggested framework is precisely about defining the methodology and all of that. So if we do select the wrong methodology, then we'll start seeing that the results are not the ones that we expected very, very soon. So, for example, if we have like a business need that requires a number, or requires a quantitative indicator, and then we decide for some reason to run a qualitative study, then very soon we're gonna see that we are falling short. So I think that's one important thing. It is, like just acknowledging that the type of data or the type of information that we need, and then if we choose the wrong one, well, that will become evident very, very shortly, because then we won't have the type of information that we need. So imagine that. Let me just think about an example here, perhaps like a concrete example to share with you in terms of those signs. So I think also the wrong research. One thing that I wanted to say is that it will be more difficult for you to run research at the wrong time if we have this cross-team ownership. That's one thing, because again, we have different guardians of the good research and making sure that we are answering the right business problems or addressing the right business goals. So that is also part of the answer. But yeah, I would say that like the most important sign will be not getting the type of information that we need to address one of the pillars that will be defined at the very beginning. So again, that kind of mistake can happen. It will be more difficult to happen again if we have cross-team ownership, because someone will say, hey, like we need an indicator, we need a percentage, we need like a quantitative indicator, and then you're suggesting that we run, I don't know, 20 moderated sessions. Well, we won't have that type of outcome with this type of methodology. So in my mind, Flavio, I think the best answer to your question is, just not getting the wrong data. Midway or mid-flight, we're going to realize very quickly that we won't be able to get the right data, and therefore we won't be able to influence what we want to influence.
Thank you, Tiago. So someone else is actually asking, can you share an example of an organization that adopts cross-discipline research ownership What does that look like? And how do you get buy-in from teams that are resistant to participate in the research?
It's something difficult to just, of course, we cannot disclose any specific clients here or any specific situations that involve PII and all of that. So, but let's think about, let's say, a mid-size company that creates like cross-functional research committee, like a cross-functional research committee for each of their product initiatives. So again, we're talking about SaaS software. So in this committee, we would have, let's say, I don't know, a PM that would be responsible for defining decisions that research plus support. We would have, let's say, also a designer that will be part of this committee, a researcher, if it's either full-time or fractional, that would lead into, the methodology or all the rigor part and the synthesis as well, and a marketing or a customer experience partner, for example. So this committee would co-own the research for the year, or the research roadmap for the year. And in this case, the research is no longer just the researcher's job. It's every team's responsibilities. I'm just giving an example, again, of course, we cannot disclose, but I'm just giving this example of a SaaS company with different professionals or that adopted this cross-functional research approach with this committee, with a PM, a designer, a researcher, and the marketing professional as well. So I think this is increasingly common in product organization, where like design, PM, engineering, and marketing, they collaborate around the North Stars and share the roadmap for the, and of course this is not only about the research roadmap, it's also about the product roadmap. So how those roadmaps talk to each other and the stakeholders that are involved in both approaches, really.
Thanks, Tiago. Someone here asks, as AI accelerates data collection and synthesis, what new strategic skills should UX researchers prioritize to ensure their work remains influential rather than just efficient?
Do you want me to answer that one, Pippa, or do you want to go? Okay with that?
I'm happy for you to take that one, Tiago.
Cool. So I'll just read it again. So as AI accelerates data collection and synthesis, what new strategic skills should UX researchers prioritize to ensure their work remains influential rather than just efficient? I think that's a great question. I think one of the main things we need to master in terms of strategic skills is to be able to gauge whatever we get out of AI tools. So it doesn't really matter if we're using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, any of those, like LLM tools. We need to, I would say that researchers in general, we already have this bug in terms of being skeptical about a few things, or like just questioning over and over again the things that we get. But I think with AI, this is even a more important ability. Just like we know that AI can hallucinate and can deliver very compelling lies sometimes. So I think that ability just to like to and in my opinion, one of the main responses to that is our ability to triangulate data, right? So imagine that we got an answer from whatever the AI model we're using, and it seems credible, but then, okay, so let's actually take all the data points that we have, like all the sources that we have, if it's either, let's say, PDFs, email threads, meeting transcripts, all of that, and just let's cross-check everything just to make sure if we can actually trust what AI is telling us, or the output that we're getting. So I think that is, and of course, this is becoming more and more difficult, because of course those tools are becoming more and more sophisticated. So even in terms of the hallucinations they produce, right? So I remember, for example, asking recently ChatGPT in that case, like we had like we were working on a study with different cohorts, and I was just asking, hey, what are the difference across these cohorts? And it simply fabricated some differences just because the fact I asked what are the differences. I didn't ask if there were differences. I asked what were the differences, and it just fabricated them. So I think that is one very strategic ability that we need to keep mastering. And the second one is tied to something that I shared at the very beginning of the presentation, which is our ability, our storytelling abilities. So, to the level that we learn how each stakeholder will better respond to the insights that we present. Just going back to my examples, perhaps Liliana responds better to video clips, to actually seeing users, struggling with something on screen, or not being able to check out, or not being able to complete a payment, for example. But perhaps people will respond better to seeing important data points. I don't know, 29% cart abandonment, something like that. So you really need to learn how to keep telling compelling stories. And again, it's becoming more difficult because of the environment we live in and all the sophistication that comes with AI, for example. But still, I really believe that those two are super important skills for us to keep mastering.
Thank you so much, Tiago. We actually have a lot more questions in here in the chat. So if you're okay to stay a couple more minutes, we can answer maybe one or two more. Tiago, this one, again, it goes to you as a researcher. Someone wants to know, how can researchers better connect qualitative, authentic user insights to measurable business outcomes in 2026?
Right. I think that comes down to how we plan research, right? So that connection is really hard, in my opinion and experience, to happen on the fly. So it's really hard to make that connection, if we don't plan for that connection. So, just going back to our framework, and sorry if I'm being repetitive here, but if we go back to steps number 1, which is about defining the strategic pillars, and number 2, which is about defining the methodology and the timing, then if we have that locked in from the get-go, so if we already plan ahead, then those connections will come more easily. But if we leave that towards, if we're going to do that on the fly, for example, hey, we have this we just found this qualitative insights here. Let's see which data points we have to support it. Well, we may find, actually, if the information exists, but we have to keep in mind that it's very easy for us also to, to fool ourselves and perhaps just choose the wrong data points, or just to, manipulate the data just so we can back up the qualitative insights in my example. So I would say that how we can better connect, better planning. I think that's the direct answer.
Thank you, Tiago. I think that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for your questions, though. We'll take those away and see how we can answer to you directly. And really, we want to thank you for joining us. I know this is a busy time of year, so we appreciate your presence. And from everyone here at Userlytics, we wish you a happy and healthy holiday season. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you at one of our events next year. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Analytics tells you what. Userlytics tells you why.